You might say this is the first ever standing of the Supreme Court. But good morning, colleagues and friends. It really is a great pleasure to be present here with all of my colleagues of the Supreme Court for the first sitting of the court in the historic city of Waterford and in this wonderful new courthouse, which is of course a mixture of the historic and the new. It wasn't that long ago that I had the particular pleasure of being involved in the opening of this remodelled and extended courthouse, which I do trust will serve the needs of the people of Waterford for many years to come. I did comment then, and it bears repeating, that I can unfortunately claim no credit for the courthouse, for the plans and funding which led to its redevelopment were all put in place during the tenure of my distinguished predecessor, Susan Denham. However, I did have the benefit of being able to bask in the glory of the delivery of a project into which I had very little input. But when I was present here on that opening day, I was buttonholed by a number of members of the local academic and practicing professions. There was at that time an emerging practice, which I think has now solidified, whereby the Supreme Court will, if at all possible, sit outside Dublin once in each year. And the point was made to me in what I have to say was fairly strong and strident terms that Waterford was deserving of its place on the roster. And their advocacy was clearly of the highest standard, for here we are today for the first sitting of the Supreme Court in the South East, with cases for hearing both today and tomorrow here in Waterford, and with a third case for hearing in Kilkenny on Wednesday. I might add that the professional and academic practitioners of Waterford who so articulately put forward their case are also deserving of the thanks of their colleagues at the opposite end of the country in the northwest for building on what I'm sure will be the success of this venture. We are already pencilled in for sittings in Castlebar and Letterkenny for next year. I've often commented before, but I think it again bears repeating, that one of the key factors in the decision of the Supreme Court to sit outside Dublin is to emphasise that we are a Supreme Court for all of Ireland and not just for the capital. But it has increasingly seemed to us that the success of these sittings requires much more than the court turning up, hearing a small number of cases and going home again. We have continued to develop our contacts with the local legal and wider communities during these visits. And I think it's fair to say that the extent of those contacts on this visit to the South East represents a significant increase on the already widespread engagement which occurred in Cork, Limerick and Galway. Apart from engagement with the practicing professions and the Waterford Institute of Technology, together with meetings with civil society, we have added a significant programme of visits to 5 secondary schools. This builds on the pilot scheme, which is called CORA, which has allowed schools from around the country to have the opportunity to engage in a video face-to-face conference with normally 2 judges of the Supreme Court. And developing that same model, we have 5 CORA live sessions where in each case 2 judges of the court will answer questions from secondary school students. Before going on to the business of the court for today, I think it would be remiss of me not to mention the particular connection of Waterford with the Irish Constitution. I had the great pleasure towards the end of last year to participate in a ceremony in Orasanúchtaráin, which involved the authentication by the President, the Taoiseach and myself, of an up-to-date version of Bunnock na hÉireann. An enrolment of an up-to-date text is contemplated by the Constitution itself, and the text thus enrolled became the 6th official text of the Constitution. On that occasion, the Registrar of the Supreme Court brought to Orasanúchtaráin all of the previous enrolled versions, but in particular the historic official version of the original Constitution adopted in 1937. And I'm happy to say that it's travelled down to Waterford here today and will be available to be seen by people later. It's often said that victory has many parents, but defeat is an orphan. But I think we can count the Irish Constitution as having been a success by any measure, and its adoption therefore a victory. There may therefore be many who would claim to be its parents, or its continuing guardians at least. But on behalf of the Supreme Court, which is after all the guardian of the Constitution and the ultimate enforcer of the rights and obligations for which it provides, it's perhaps important that I finish by acknowledging here today when the court sits for the first time in the home city of its most distinguished parent, John Hearn. Thank you very much.